Hey folks, welcome back to Retirement Roadmap with Master Plan Retirement Consultants. My name is Evan, and with me as always, retirement planner Mark Fricks. We often discuss the importance of estate planning and having a legacy plan in place. Ensuring your legal documents and beneficiaries are aligned and up to date, avoiding probate as much as possible, regularly reviewing your estate plan to ensure it is adequate and complete to your present day needs. Preparation is key, but what happens when it's time to enact an estate plan? How do assets move and change ownership to beneficiaries? Do you know the beneficiaries on your account or your parents' account? What accounts does mom or dad have? There are so many moving parts, the scramble can be overwhelming. Mark, when a client or a parent of a client passes, it's a sad time for us all, clearly. Aside from the grief, sometimes it can feel like a metaphorical shot clock for our team and the survivors to put the client's estate and legacy plan in place.
Yeah, it's, I just think back, it's only been a few weeks ago, we got another phone call, mom's passed away, letting us know, and it happens more than you like. It's part of this kind of a business because we do deal with a lot of folks over 55 and 60, and maybe it's their parents, maybe it's them, that type of thing too. But it is, as much as it means to me because they're friends as well as clients, I can't imagine what it feels like for the family. Many times it's a shock, sometimes it's a sudden affair, but then our minds kind of switch to what has to happen next. And many times they're lost. You're fighting grief, you're fighting all these emotions, but you're also wondering, there's this wilderness in front of you of what all do I have to do? And we're going to talk about that today. And it is overwhelming, and that's why we try to provide the tools needed to make sure that they can make it through the maze that actually could take a couple of years if they're not prepared for it.
Right. When we lose a client, or a client loses a loved one that's close to them, it really is an opportunity for us as a company to care for that client during the grieving process, to make the transition as smooth and worry-free as possible. So today we're going to discuss how we help clients to stay organized so that the transition can be as smooth as possible during an already stressful time when loved ones are grieving. One of the first ways, and really the focus of today's episode, once a client graduates phase one of our planning process, they receive what we call a PRO, which is a professional record organizer. Really, it's just this big leather-bound, it's the highest quality imitation leather-bound.
Real faux leather.
Yeah.
But a lot of Nagahides died for that.
Exactly, it's a tragedy. It's basically a large binder with everything they came to us with, shows step-by-step where accounts moved, an actual written plan of what their retirement plan is, but it also has multiple sections that discuss estate planning and other details to not only keep the client organized of where all of their things are, but it's also a great thing to hand off to an heir and say, hey, this is where everything is, this is how you find everything, this is our information. When something happens to me, go here first. This is your one-stop shop for all the information, because we know what it's like when people lose someone suddenly and all of a sudden you're scrambling to find accounts. What's the PIN to this account, or do they even have safety deposit box or a safe deposit box I don't even know about. So I'm going to run through a few of the things that are in this professional record organizer or PRO, and then some other ideas of things that you could also add to really make that as seamless and as thorough as possible. So first of all, I already mentioned we have the contents of before and after the planning process for our clients, but it's all accounts and info in one place: account types, beneficiaries, things like that.
Well, it's also why we did things. Well, why did we do this plan? Why do we have this tax strategy? What is the plan going forward? Which is always flexible, but why we did things, illustrations showing why it works, things like that. So it's really a real written plan as opposed to a couple of reports you run to try to sell a product or whatever. It's typically 1.5 to 2 inches thick. And then it's added to, as you know, every time they come in and meet with us, we add the latest numbers in. If we run a new illustration, we put that in there so that it's totally kept up to date. And I've had people come in, their book has grown, looks pregnant, because they keep adding reports to it that we have provided to them. So it really is a tracking mechanism for the entire planning process. And considering we may work with a client 20, 25, 30 years, you can imagine how much information. Sometimes I'll have a client come in and say, can you help cull some of this out? Maybe some stuff that's not important. And so we'll have half a meeting of putting things in the shredder that really isn't totally necessary, but it keeps it clean.
Yeah, absolutely. Insurance policies, super important. Those specific policies and the beneficiaries of those policies.
Which we update. I mean, we try to do a beneficiary audit every 2 to 4 years to make sure that maybe a company hasn't lost it, or maybe they forgot the fact that, I don't know, that one of their kids got married, they want to include the daughter-in-law or whatever. I mean, we always want to go back and check. And also accounts that we don't control. Maybe they have a group life at work, and we want to come back and remind them, can you double check and make sure you've changed this to what it needs to be? The old story of the guy that was married for a couple of years and worked at Lockheed and then got remarried, worked at Lockheed another 30 years, passed away, and found out his 401k still had his ex-wife on it. I mean, just weird things like that you don't think about, but can be really mess something up.
Yeah. Something else to include: any deeds of ownership, houses, cars, things like that.
Yeah, and also, and you may get to this, but the beginning of the book is personal information. I mean, something as simple as your mom or dad's social security number, or my social security number for my kids. If I've been through a legal process, or maybe my birth certificate, is that going to be needed somewhere down the road? So all of that is mentioned in the first 2 or 3 pages that the client fills out to make sure that everybody knows what's going on, and we're expanding on that. As you know, we're expanding that to include even more information, which I think you'll probably get to here shortly.
Yeah. Estate planning documents, obviously, trusts, wills, things like that. 2 very important ones, especially towards the end: healthcare directives and financial powers of attorney. One thing to consider: we did mention those insurance policies, and those are super helpful. Yes, a payout for a death benefit is great. However, there is going to be a delay between the passing of that individual and their beneficiaries receiving the death benefit. That payout can take a month. It could take more. You have to wait until the death certificates arrive. Oftentimes you need multiple death certificates if there are multiple policies and accounts that you have to claim as a beneficiary. So making sure you have liquidity between the passing and the arrival of the death benefit. Think about funeral costs, any health care costs that might happen between then and...
Well, and just living costs.
And just living, yeah.
We had a client last year, her husband passed away suddenly, and he was in his young 50s. And so they ordered an autopsy. And that took 3 months, 4 months. They can't issue a death certificate until you have an autopsy. So she was frozen. She couldn't hardly, she was very little she could touch. And she ended up borrowing from her 401k or thrift savings plan just to try to make it through that process, and thankfully she had that available.
Yeah. One thing we also, speaking of the legal documents, trusts, and wills, we also include an estate planning overview and guide, which walks through the different types of legal documents, how they work, what they mean, definitions at the end as well. This is a really good go-to for anyone who might be picking this up and don't know us, maybe the beneficiary of a client or something, and then it's all kind of laid out there for them and explains it pretty well.
And which reminds me, I've got several clients that they maybe write on the first page, call master plan if something happens. Yeah. So, because we have all that information as well, but I think it's still important to have that book and everything in it to make sure that, again, whoever it passes off to, make sure, again, the kids know where it's at or whatever, so that that's the first thing they go to make sure, again, they know where everything is at.
Yeah, and that's a great point. That's another one of my my points here. If you have work with a financial advisor, make sure you have that advisor contact, especially if they're the ones who have helped with the majority of their accounts, right? Any attorney information, estate planning attorneys, if you have questions on the documents, anything else like that, that's great to include in one of these packages.
As well as if you have a property and casualty agent, car insurance, homeowners, all that kind of stuff. If it was an accident, maybe the liability, you want to know what agent to call, CPA. That information needs to be in there. I think we include that in there as well. Any other financial professionals you might work with, or your parents might work with, or whatever, to make sure that's included, so you can contact the right people.
Yeah, and kind kind of along those same lines, so many of us have automatic billing from our checking account. You want to be able to have access to that when you need it so that you can start. First of all, what accounts are taking these automatic billing, but you can call and stop those so that after the fact, they're not just draining a checking account from there on.
Well, and also stopping Social Security if they're on Social Security. And so this is the problem, Evan, is when somebody passes away, as soon as the bank finds out about it or whatever financial institution, they will typically lock that account down and the safety deposit box. So that might be a good reason for if it's a husband and wife to, if you want to have a joint checking, that's great, but maybe have your own checking and their own checking as well, so there's a place to go for money, because a joint account will be locked down. If their name's on it, banks look out for that, and legally they're supposed to lock it down until probate. Hey, we know how long probate can take, and maybe you can get an exception or go to a judge. But again, it's going to be weeks and weeks and maybe months and months before you can get to that money.
I didn't realize that a joint account would be locked down.
If that person's name is on it, my understanding is until you can say, here's a death certificate, they're gone, it's my account now, that account cannot be used.
In addition to those kinds of accounts that might be taking out monthly withdrawals or bill pay, that kind of stuff, any essential digital information, logins, passwords, things like that, those are helpful to be listed. Even something as simple as an email login would be helpful to have.
And where's the safety deposit box key? Where's that at? Where's the combination or key to the safe that you have in the basement? That's something else. By the way, this book we're talking about and other information is related to it. This is not a coffee table book.
Right.
Don't leave, you can't leave this out, by the way. Very personal information, and so make sure it's hidden away, maybe in a fireproof box or something like that, because it is a lot of personal stuff. But again, it can be a vital tool in this situation.
Yeah, not necessarily something to have on the bookshelf. However, there should probably be one or two trusted beneficiaries or heirs,
or executors
children,
or whatever. Yeah.
Something that, hey, this is here, this is how you access it.
Right.
When something happens, this is what you need to go to first.
And even something, I don't know why this popped into my head, but I know I've heard of many people as well as clients that, people maybe that buy precious metals and keep them at home. Where's that at?
Yeah.
Is that hidden somewhere? Is that in the safe? What about firearms? What about jewelry that is expensive that maybe is kept somewhere else? So again, it's all this stuff. Our whole world. All of a sudden, we got to know where everything is and how to deal with it.
Well, that was my exact next point was, first of all, if there is a safe deposit box, we know someone who ran all over Atlanta because they knew mom or dad had one. They just had no idea where it was, and they never actually found it. List that and where it's located. If there are any precious metals, again, in the house, list that. You don't have to leave a treasure map or anything, but at least list the assets.
Fun, though.
That might be fun. Leave a last little gift, little gift. But make sure you list those things and let them know beforehand, okay, this is where these things are when you need it. I do want to take a moment, folks, to remind you, check out our website, masterplanretire.com. There you can schedule your complimentary consultation with one of our advisors. You can actually go to our website and click a Schedule Now button, and that will take you directly to our calendar to find a time that works best for you. If you're in the Marietta, Georgia area, of course, come visit us in office. We would love to have you. Excuse me. Also, however, we also know how to meet digitally via Zoom, as most of the world got really good at it a couple years ago.
And we still have a phone.
And that number is 770-980-9262. Schedule your complimentary consultation. Again, that's masterplanretire.com. So all of this information, of course, that we've mentioned is also digitally backed up by our firm. So we also, as you mentioned, include information for our firm so they know how to contact us. And really, again, if something like this is produced from an advisor or retirement planner, the first place that they should be able to go is to that retirement planner, is to that advisor, because really, if an advisor is doing their job correctly as a holistic planner, they should really be guiding your heirs through this process.
They probably have most of their financial world, or at least a record of it, for sure.
Yeah, and anything that we give our clients in a pro is digitally backed up, and oftentimes it's a little bit easier to understand as well. when it's digitally backed
Well,
up
and
like
if you're working with an advisor or a retirement consultant or whatever, they also understand the implications of moving accounts around after somebody passes away, the tax implications. And I know that's a little bit further down the road, but still, you don't want to ignore that. You don't want to start making moves. Had somebody pass away recently, and the daughter came to us. The son went to his advisor. Well, all of the mom's stuff was with us, and they're trying to deal with things they don't really understand because they don't know what mom really has, and it just got a little messy. And I don't mind if somebody comes and wants to use another advisor once we help them out, but really, I mean, we really understand how the accounts work. I mean, let's say you have an annuity. There's several ways you can take that annuity out of passing. And so what's best for, the children or grandchildren or the spouse that's left or whatever, and whether the other advisor knows how it works, maybe they're not familiar with that product, or maybe they're just trying to get the money over to their firm or whatever. It really needs to be a thoughtful process. And so I think that's a great point you've made a couple of times, is go back to the source, go back to where the plan is or the money is, and let them begin the process. Then if you want to take something somewhere else, that's fine.
Yeah, and as fiduciaries to our client, we're also fiduciaries to your heirs, because we want to make sure that not only do they understand what you had in mind and your plan, but they understand the consequences of how they receive accounts in certain ways.
That's a great point. And by the way, I think I've mentioned this before, but a lot of our clients, we will have family meetings once the plan's in place, and the kids will come in. And when I say kids, most of these kids are 30 and 40 years old, okay, because the parents are 60 and 70. But we'll have a family meeting around the conference table and kind of get to know them a little bit. And mom and dad will tell us what to disclose to the heirs or the children. Maybe they don't want them to know everything. They want them to know this much. Maybe they want them to know everything, so they'll understand the process when that occurs, but at least they're familiar with our office and kind of what mom and dad have done and what their wishes are.
Yeah.
Having that communication. I mean, everything in writing is great, but I tell you what, that communication is really powerful.
Absolutely. So now I want to run through some things that we don't provide within the Pro, but are really good ideas to consider for yourself that clients so often add after the fact. Just more things that's helpful to have in one place for when it's needed. And one, you alluded to this a little bit with the safe deposit box, but that would be keys. One of those little zip envelopes that has a 3-ring binder punch in it you can keep in there would be really nice. But keys, and also labeled keys. Where do they go? What are they for?
You got a key ring of 15 keys in a drawer. Half of them probably aren't any good anymore, but some may be. And it could be just something as simple as a file cabinet or a firebox. It could be, who knows? It could be the shed out back. I don't know, but it's important to understand what they are.
Yeah. Yep. This next one isn't necessarily relevant to many of our clients at this point, but if you have a current employer, current employer info, everything from name, direct supervisor, HR contact, start date, job title, contracts, benefit, bonus info, ownership interest, just anything that you can provide there that would make that process smoother. Dependent info, so basically just basic info if there are any dependents, important documents, doctor info. What if you have a special needs child, that's an adult child who's still at home? You would definitely want all of that in one place. Special medical needs, treatments, special education needs, allergies, a big one, sports activities, financial obligations, things like that. Here's one that I actually haven't really considered before today. Friends. Notes on the main contact, different categories of friends, desire to notify them or not upon illness or death.
Yeah. They belong to this club and this organization over here and this church, and maybe a club they were in 10 years ago, but still great friends. Maybe even old college friends, that they still hang out together or still know them and track them. And, Facebook and Instagram is kind of filling that void a little bit, but just don't count just on that, because not everybody's on Facebook, not everybody's on Instagram. So what are the organizations they've been related to? I think that's a great idea.
And depending on what stage you're at, you don't necessarily want to blast all that onto social media.
It depends. Yeah.
So friends, that leads me directly to communities, as you mentioned. Any memberships, book clubs, associations, communities that you belong to, with main contact info and whether or not you want them notified as well of your condition or passing. Social media, also, digital platforms, username, logins, legacy contact designations. That's not something that I've ever really thought about, but that's something that needs to be, especially as we move further and further along the technology train. Just notes on what to do with that account. Keep it open, close it. Sometimes we have terabytes of photos that are just online.
That
What to
you
do
can't
with
get
those?
to, yeah. I just thought of one too. What about how do you get into their cell phone?
I have no
Password,
idea.
fingerprint. I mean, that's.
Contact. I would assume that you would do it the same as with most things. You would contact the company.
But it may take a while, right?
With a death certificate, maybe. But I don't know. Do you have a beneficiary, or at least I guess you could do a contact. I'm not sure. I really don't know. That's a great thing to look into.
Yep.
Here's one: pet information. So, vet info, boarding, daycare, any
Shots,
insurance,
medicine.
yeah, medical, groomer, microchip ID, preferred guardian, food, treats, meds, allergies, temperament, behavior. I mean,
That's why I have a turtle. It's really simple.
Sure. Well, and we have pets become more and more, the relationship gets stronger and stronger, especially as if you're on your own.
And you get older, and that's your companion. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And so you want to make sure that, especially if that pet has certain needs, that they're going to be taken care of well after your passing. And again, we kind of mentioned this next one a little bit, and that would be just subscriptions, memberships, any donations that are mailed or online subscriptions, charitable contributions that you wish to make. A lot of times, that will be included in a trust or a will.
It should be, yeah.
But yeah, again, canceling those auto withdrawals to your bank account as well. Let's see. Current medical for yourself. Your doctor info, your preferred hospital, online healthcare account access, that's a good one.
That's right, most records are now online.
Yeah. Current meds and prescriptions, your blood type. A lot of people don't even consider that.
I don't even know my blood type.
Mine. Vaccination notes, things like that. Sentimental items is also a huge one. A lot of times if someone passes and the children come in to help organize and clean out the house, they don't know how much an item might mean to somebody. So if you want to list any of those things, past medical history, sometimes the doctor asks you, what's your medical history? Your parents ever suffered from this? Kind of helpful to know for your heirs as well, so what they might be able to look out for. Any military service, the history, citations or awards received, the DD-214, VA Form 401330, all those military folks know what I'm talking about there, but all in one place. Again, past employment, anything like that. End of life ceremonies, desires, funeral, cemetery preferences, spiritual or
cremation, buried,
Yep,
religious, non-religious. I mean, so many different things there.
Any prearrangements like that, and some of that will be included in a trust. But
you could have language, but a lot of times not.
Yeah. More about what to do with the person after, and then ancestry. A lot of people do the 23andMe or do the Ancestry.com stuff, and some of those that's not even that you already had that maybe have been passed down. Include that as well.
Yep. So we are out of time. So let's wrap it up. Just real quickly, masterplanretire.com. Just want to mention that we do have available, if you request it, I think it's a 64 checklist that of everything that needs to happen when somebody passes away, from a standpoint of everything from funeral to death certificates, all the little steps. It's a great checklist. Ask us for that, masterplanretire.com. And until we see each other again, remember, plan well and prosper. Take care.
This was Retirement Roadmap Radio with Mark Fricks of Master Plan Retirement Consultants. To schedule a complimentary consultation, go to masterplanretire.com or call 770-980-9262. Thanks for listening, and remember, plan well and prosper.
All matters discussed during this show are for informational purposes only. Each individual situation may vary, and the opinions expressed here may not apply to everyone. Materials presented are believed to be from reliable sources, and no representations can be made as to its accuracy. All ideas and information should be discussed in detail with one of our qualified representatives prior to implementation. Advisory services offered through Master Plan Retirement Consultants, a registered investment advisor in the state of Georgia. Mark Fricks and Master Plan Retirement Consultants are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency.